Okay, hi, I'm Tomato Anus. I speedrun Fallout 4. And this is the first video in a series of videos explaining how to speedrun the any percent category for Fallout 4. So, before I get into anything, I just want to say first, check the description. I'll have a list there if there's anything I missed. Hopefully there's nothing I miss. I made a list of things to go over, so hopefully I got everything, but double check there. If I didn't miss anything, I'll make a note saying everything's all good. Second thing I want to go over at the very start of this, a very important thing. Speedrun.com/Fallout_4. If you're watching this tutorial, you likely found it through this website. This is your #1 hub for resources, leaderboards. Make sure you look at all the rules and stuff. There's game rules. These are all the rules that you have to follow when playing the game. And then specific category rules for each of the categories. And that applies to all categories. If you do glitch list, there's a, once this loads, there's some specific rules for the category of glitch list, stuff like that. So the speedrun.com/Fallout_4 is a very important website. There's two categories for any percent. There's full game, there's no intro. I highly recommend running just no intro when you learn, because it'll help immensely with getting good at the game quickly. So I highly recommend just doing no intro, but this is going to be a category for full game. I'll go over how to do no intro in a second. So the other thing I want to preface this with is join the Discord. Join it, and if you have any questions about the run or anything, don't leave a comment down below. Send a question in the Discord. The Discord is specifically the Fallout 4 channel. So if you go to Fallout's, here's what the server looks like. When you join, you'll be in the general channel. Go on down to the Fallout 4 channel and send a message and leave it there. So do that if you have any questions. Don't leave a comment on the channel or DM me, because I might not see it for a bit. So yeah, go through those means. All right, with that being said, let's get into the game and the actual speedrun. So the first thing that's important to know is that we speedrun any percent on version 1.1.30, which is the first patch version of the game. The game was released on version 1.1.29, and then the patch of 1.1.30 came out, and no bugs or patches, mostly just stability stuff. Also, the loading screens, I think, the loading screens are faster on 29. Anyways, so we have to down patch our game. So what you have to do is click on resources here and scroll down, and there will be a partial backup here of the game, of all the files that you need to just down patch. So you just click on this, it'll bring you to omega.nz of the partial files. Once it loads, you'll download them. For the sake of it, I have a backup of it, so we don't have to sit here and watch it download. But pretty much, it's a folder called Fallout 4.v 1.1.30, and it has 4 items in it: a data folder, a exe, a launcher.exe, and a library. So you need these 4 things. So just download the folder as a whole. Usually you can just right click up here, do download zip, or standard download, whichever you prefer. And then once you're done, you will have this folder, and it has this stuff. So what you're going to want to do then is to down patch the game. You have to go to your Steam directory. So find your Steam folder. So Steam, into the Steam folder, you go to Steam Apps, go to Common. So that the file path is Steam Apps Common. Then go to your Fallout 4 folder. And what you're going to do, it might not look as messy as this. Mine looks pretty messy because of a bunch of over the times I've had to down patch with various things. It probably won't look this messy. Maybe it will. I don't know. It's been so long since I've seen a vanilla folder. All you're going to do is highlight these, and you're going to copy them over to the Fallout 4 folder. And when you get pop-up saying replace the files in this destination, just say yes. And it'll go through and it will overwrite all the files in here and turn it into version 1.1.30. Now, say you want to have a copy of Fallout 4 to play casually still, that is fully patched. You don't want to have to down patch and repatch every time. Well, what you should do then is in your Steam directory, make a copy of your Fallout 4 folder and paste it, and put the name, like denote one of them as being the one that will be patched and one that will be the down patched one. And pretty much whichever one you want to play, you want the Fallout 4 folder to be the you want the one you want to play just to be have the name Fallout 4. So say this is my VR copy of the game. Say this was the patched version. Like you would just have it like this. And right now I'm playing on the down patched one. So I have the down patched one be named just Fallout 4. And then I'm going to wait for this to finish copying. Yeah, there we go. So then say, I want to play on the unpatched, or I want to play on the patched version of the game. Then you just rename the unpatched folder to there, down patched or whatever, and then change this one back to just Fallout 4, and then you can play on the patched version of the game. But I personally don't play the game patched at all, so I just have one copy of the game in my Steam folder. But that's how you would do it if you want multiple copies of the game. And that's how you down patch. Now, the second thing that you need, if you're gonna do any percent, I highly recommend you download the French voice file. So what you do is you go to this in the resources tab, click on the all voice files thing, and just download the French one. And when you download it, you will then have a folder. It won't be, these are all the different voices. You won't have all of them. You'll just get like a .zip of just the French one. And I believe it should be named Fallout-voices_FR, maybe just Fallout-voices. But pretty much what you're going to do is go back into your Fallout 4 folder, go into the data folder, scroll down, and you will already have a Fallout-voices, and this will be the English voice file, right? So we want to replace this with the French one. So what you can either do is rename the English one to, you can either rename it to something else so that you can still have it if you want to switch back to it, and then just copy the French one into there, and then when the French one gets loaded in, change the name. This is my French voice file, so I'm not going to copy it over, but just change the name to Fallout 4 space voices. So when the game launches, it looks for this file and it will read it regardless of what it is, and that will be the voice file, and this is the French voice file. So yeah, just copy the French voice file into your data folder and make sure it's named Fallout 4 space voices. If you're going to run categories like sex percent or categories that only do the intro and they don't do the memory den segment of the game, you can also you would then want to play in German. German has the fastest intro for the game. French is the fastest overall, though. So for German, same thing. This _DE for Deutsch or whatever. If I want to swap between French and German, I would just rename this to something else, and then change the German one's name to Fallout 4-voices. But for the sake of any percent in the tutorial, I'm going to keep it in French. So that's how you change. That only changes the voice actor's audio. It doesn't change the cutscenes. It doesn't change the menus. It doesn't change any of the text. It's just the voice file. Now, the next thing. All right, so we got that out of the way. So we've covered down patching. We've covered the French language. The next thing that you're going to need, or I guess it's not need. The next thing you might want is this, the escape scroll wheel bind for Clive. So there's a glitch in this game. I'll show it real quick. There's a glitch in this game that we call Clive, which stands for Clip into Vault Elevator. So Clive requires you to spam the escape button at a very fast rate. This is what Clive looks like. I'll turn on the volume. This is from my PB. So that's what it looks like. Essentially, you spam escape and drop through a floor of an elevator. That saves 14 seconds. If you're going to be running the game, no intro, it doesn't matter. Also, it is a bit reset heavy and you can die from it. until you really get the hang of it. So if you're just learning the game, I would probably advise you to not do it. It's not super important. I would only do it once you're really comfortable with the rest of the game and you're okay with resetting a lot. But I will teach you how to do it later in the video, or in the second video of the series, second or third. But all you have to do is click on this link and it will download a RAR. I downloaded it earlier today. That's why it's called comma or parenthesis 1. And pretty much all you're going to do is extract that, and there will be an exe in there, and you will run it, and it will be, you can copy it to somewhere, and pretty much it's the equivalent of this AHK. It's an AutoHotkey file. So this is what the AutoHotkey file means, and pretty much what this says is when you hold the shift button on your keyboard and you scroll, it pretty, like every scroll input registers as an escape button press. So whenever you have this script running, if you hold shift and scroll, your scrolling is an escape button press. This is the sound of my scroll wheel, so you'll hear that later on. But we don't need that right now, so I'm going to exit the script, and I recommend you leave the script exited anytime you aren't using it as well, because it can get annoying. Here's an example of how it got annoying, because after you exit it, I also recommend pressing shift and clicking off, or clicking somewhere. Anyways, so all you're gonna do for that is download it, extract the exe, and run that whenever you need to run the thing, or you can just make an AHK file if you're familiar with AutoHotkey, and have it be this for the shift stuff. Anyways, so we'll get to that later. I'll explain that when we get to that part in the run. The next thing, though, that is a bit tricky is the Pip-Boy app. So this speedrun uses, exit that. We'll get to this stuff later. These are third-party stuff. We're getting into all the third-party stuff that you need. So as you can see on the leaderboard, we have a column for Pip-Boy app. Pretty much, if you're unfamiliar with Fallout 4 and its release, when the game was released, there was a Pip-Boy app released for Apple and Android devices, where you could use the Pip-Boy from your mobile phone. This was banned in the any percent category for a long time because we didn't want people to have a $300 phone or $300 plus phone to be able to run the game competitively. However, there was a use found for the app that made the run a lot more accessible in terms of difficulty, and just making it making it a more accessible run that requires the app. However, we didn't want people to use it on their phone, especially because it's no longer available on Android. So instead, we use an emulated version of it. So this is the APK. If you download this is pretty much the app itself. And in order to run it, you need an Android emulator. So I'm not going to go in depth on how to install an Android emulator. Also, I apologize for my messy desktop. I need to clean it up, I know. I'm not going to go in depth into how to use or how to download an Android emulator. I'll just say that the one I use is LeapDroid. I believe I use that, and another runner uses that. A different runner uses Nox, Nox. I'm not gonna go in depth on how to install an Android emulator. The Fallout community isn't particularly well versed in Android emulators, so we probably can't do much troubleshooting for you. But there's a ton of guides and resources online of how to install free Android emulators, and I recommend you use either LeapDroid or you use Nox. So, say you finally get it running. There are a couple things that you need to know with LeapDroid, or with one second, I'm making a note because I just remembered something for later. So say you get it running. When you need to run the app, all you have to do is take the app file and drag it into the thing, and it'll say, do you want to install it, whatever. You just say yes. I already have it installed. This is what the app will look like once it's loaded. It'll go through all this stuff. And it's important for me to note now that whenever you're using the app, it's stated in the rules. I'll show you. Using the Pip-Boy mobile app is allowed, as I just discussed. The app must be ran through an emulator, which emulator you use does not matter, as I just said. Again, you have to use it through an emulator and not your phone because you have to be able to capture your movements with it on screen. And that's outlined here as well. The app must be captured on screen anytime you're interacting with it, including preparing your map for fast travel. Additionally, capture of the app must include capture of your cursor. And I'll get to what that means in a moment, but pretty much this is what it'll look like when you run the game. You just press retry, and it'll run and whatever, and it'll connect to the game. But we'll get to that we'll get to that in a bit. But just so you know, you can use whatever Android emulator you want to use. There are tons of guides for setting them up online. Just follow one of those. If you have questions, maybe we can help you out, but I would just search around forums, maybe join some other Discords. But really, I don't think anyone's had any particular issues with setting it up. The next thing you need is Live Split. So I apologize now for how many things there are to go through, but there really is a lot to the run. It may be intimidating, but I promise you it's worth it. It's a very fun speed run. It's a very challenging run, but fun. So Live Split is the timer that all speedrunners use. You can just download it from here and then move the folder to wherever you want on your computer and run it. And once you get it up and running, give it a moment. You want to run it as an administrator. That's very important. Once you get it up and running, it's going to look like... Where's it like a default? It's going to look like this, which is really ugly. But everyone, it's somewhere to start you. And oh no, it's gonna look like this, I believe. Yeah, I believe this is how it will look when you first start it, right? There's not much to it, but you can edit the layout. Well, first things first, you want to do once you get it launched is you want to do edit splits, and here is where you're going to, in the game name, you're gonna type Fallout 4. You don't want to just type Fallout because then it will automatically, so you're talking about like the first Fallout, so Fallout space and then 4. And then run category, doesn't matter too much, but you can just click any percent. For start timer, do -3.5 if you're doing full game. If you're doing no intro, just do 0, but do -3.5. And then load removal is available by a Dalet, type activate. So, or click activate. So what this means is it's a PC speedrun, and we want to make sure that everyone is playing on an equal footing, like playing on an equal playing field. We don't want anyone to have an unfair advantage because they have a faster PC and their loads are faster. So it's very, very, very common in PC speedrunning to have load removers where the timer will read the memory of the game and automatically pause itself whenever it detects a loading screen. So make sure this is clicked on activate. Here's where you can set up your splits. There's a bunch of tutorials online for how to set up Live Split and run them. I believe Smallant has a tutorial from 2016 or 17. But there's a ton of tutorials online for how to set up Live Split, so I implore you to look those up if you want to figure out how to use them. For split names, it doesn't matter what you name them. For where to split, it doesn't matter where you split. Don't come into the Discord asking, hey, can I get a file? Can I get someone's live split file so I can have all the correct splits and everything? It's like there are no correct splits. All that matters is that you start your timer at the right time and you stop your timer at the right time. Even that's not ultra important, but all that matters is that you have the timer running for the duration of your speed run. So you can name them whatever, like you can name it like before the war or something like that, and then you could be like Freezy Pop Time or something. You could just name them whatever you want, and then like this will be like Blow Up Institute, whatever. You can name them whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Personally, this is what my oh, that's no intro. I have like a billion things, so I believe this is it. Yes. So personally, this is what my splits look like. If you want to just take a look, I have a split for every stack, and you'll understand what that means if you haven't seen the run in a bit. And it saves like what your segment time is in your PB. My PB is 35 minutes 57 seconds. So these are the split times. Like this is the time, how far into the run I was when I made each split. This was the actual length of every split. And this is my best time in every split. My best time I've ever gotten. So now that we've gone through that, let's talk about the load remover and how to get that set up. So say you make your splits and it looks like this, right? What you need to do is go here, make sure you compare against game time. Okay. Step one, make sure you right click on here, compare against game time. Also you compare against personal best. Then go to edit layout. And then you can click on layout settings, go to splits, and in here, make sure for timing method, you're set against current timing method for both of them, for like all of them. Make sure you're always against current timing method. Okay. And then comparison, current comparison, but always current timing method. Very important. Timer as well, current timing method. What this means is that when you right click on here and click compare against, it will do game time. Pretty much current timing method means it will default to whichever one of these two you have chosen in this menu. You always want it to be on game time. You can override it so that it's always game time in here. By instead of current timing method, you do real time, but you want to do game time. Notice how the time and the splits change. The game time is the time without loads. Game time is the time with loads. Like, so there's a huge difference, as you can see. My run's 19 minutes slower if you count the load times in. So keep it as current timing method, and it should display all of your in-game time stuff. So again, compare against game time, and then in your layout, every spot where there is any, like, because you might edit this and it might not be exactly just splits timer, it might not be this simple. Any spot where it says timing method, make sure it's current timing method. If you come in saying, hey, the load remover isn't working, the first things we'll ask are, did you make sure to activate it? And did you make sure that your stuff is comparing against the current timing method? But once you get it all set up, like layouts, they can look whatever way you really want. Like I have a billion layouts. Like there, I have one that's like that. I have one that's like this. These, like, it doesn't matter how it looks. I have one, oh, I just did that one. I have another one that's horizontal. The one I use just looks like this. It's pretty simple. The green is so I can chroma key it out in OBS, which we'll get to OBS in a minute. But yeah, the other really important thing to do, this is the reason why we run it as an administrator, is when you get it set up, go to settings, and here are your hotkeys. Make sure you turn global hotkeys on. And I also recommend you turn on double tap prevention, but global hotkeys on. And here's where you can set up all of your hotkeys. So, you want when you press like the B button to be when you start and split and everything like that. You can do that. If you want to press number pad 4, although I highly advise against using any numbers. If you want when you press like the apostrophe key, you can do that. You can do whatever you want. You can also do combinations of buttons. So I personally do Alt plus W. That's my start and split, because I used to play Dota and that was an item hotkey. So when I switched to speedrunning, I was used to it. But pretty much make sure you have a start split, start/split. The same button you press to start the timer is the same button you'll press to split individually each time. The reset button is important. Mine's just delete for obvious reasons. Undo split means you'll go back a split. So like say my, hold on, let me get this. So say this is what my timer looks like. I can skip splits. If I forget to split, I can skip, or if I accidentally split twice, I can go back a couple times. That's what the skip and undo split buttons are. Pause, don't pause your timer when you're running. Your run will be invalid then. I have a hotkey set up for it just in case. I don't know. none of them are super important other than split and reset. Start/split and reset. And also make sure global hotkeys are on. That means global hotkeys being on means when you are in Fallout 4 and doing that, you don't have to make live split your current window to be able to do it. So global hotkeys on. And yeah, that's about it for live split. I'm going to exit it. So the next thing that we need to talk about, so live split is done. The next thing we need to talk about in the game rules, the first rule, the game must be capped at 60 FPS. FPS must be shown on screen during the entire run. You're allowed to use a third-party software to lower the FPS cap while doing cover slides. So the reason for this is that the game runs at a higher FPS when you are, sorry, I'm having a stroke right now. The game's physics are tied to your FPS, so if you play at an FPS above 60, then the game will run at higher than normal speed. So you have to make sure you limit your frame rate to 60. A good way to do this is to just change your refresh rate to 60 hertz. Give it a second. There we go. If you have it at 144, then the game will auto cap to 48 FPS, so change it to 60 hertz, or you can play at 144 and do a little bit of a workaround, which I'll talk about in a moment. But you need to cap at 60 FPS. So and it has to be displayed. That's so key. Like one of my least favorite things to do is reject runs because they don't have the FPS displayed. But it's part of the rules. We need to make sure that all runs are played at the same speed. So what you want to do is you can either use, there are 3 programs that people will largely use. The first is RTSS, and this is Riva Tuner Statistics Server. And this is the one I recommend. It's the most simple, and it's also the most customizable. So when you download RTSS and install it, I'm not going to go through that process, but once you install it, run it as an administrator, and when you launch it, it should minimize the system tray automatically. It might not, but here's what the window looks like. So the settings for this are pretty important. But all you have to do is click Add, and then navigate to your Fallout 4 exe in your Steam folder, wherever that is, and that will add a Fallout 4 exe to this list. And I could go through and explain all the settings, but I'm just going to say copy what my settings are. So show on to screen, just pretty much look at what I have here and copy it. The only one that's really that don't matter is, so if you double click on Raster 3D, you can change the font of of your frame rate and stuff. So say you want your font to be this, you can do that. You can change the size of it and stuff like that. So this doesn't matter. This is just my personal preference. This having the shadow below the number doesn't matter. Up to you. This is just color stuff. So this is customizable. This is customizable, and these are colors customizable. The size also doesn't matter. Just make sure it doesn't obscure gameplay too much. You can move it around if you want. It's all up to you. But make sure all this stuff is the same. The high, off 60, on raster, viewport, show statistics on, show on screen display on. Additionally, make sure you clicked on, for all this, make sure you're clicked on fallout4.exe. Also click on setup, and in here, these don't matter too much, I believe. Just look at what I have. I believe all of these are default. However, the one that's important is injection properties. Change injection delay to 100. Pretty much what this is when you launch up the game like Riva Tuner will wait this many milliseconds before limiting the frame rate. So I believe by default it's set to 15,000, so that's 15 seconds. So that means that when you launch the game, you'd have to wait 15 seconds for the frame rate to start limiting. Just change it to 100, press OK, and it should limit almost immediately. Once you get it all set up, you can minimize it, and it'll minimize to the system tray right here. If you exit, then it will not be minimized, and you'll have to relaunch it. So let me launch it again, and it'll be in the system tray, as you can see. So the other ones you can do, that's the one I recommend. It's very easy, very smooth. Another one you can download is DxStory. DxStory used to be used a lot in the route, or a lot in the run, because there's a property of DxStory that you can limit your frame rate even further by pressing a button, and that used to be a part of the route. It's not anymore, but a lot of runners are familiar with it, so they still use it. So that's why you might see some people using it still, but really it's an inferior program to RTSS, but some people prefer it. You can download it and install it. I still have it installed just to show you. Once you get it installed and you launch it, it's not freeware, but their workaround for freeware is just saying, hey, it's not freeware, pay for it if you're using it continuously. But all you have to do is press experience the trial, and every time you speedrun, you're going to be experiencing a trial. Let me see, where is the important thing? So to get this set up, all you need to do is you need to, so for output, in this video one, for output, make sure you have direct show output selected. Option, do synchronize video FPS. It's been a while since I've used this. Yeah, so this part doesn't matter. Ignore the 12.5, that's something else. But direct show output, synchronize video FPS, and then in this one, the advanced one, click limit video FPS and 60, and then minimize, and that will limit your frame rate to 60 when you launch the game. Every time you exit it as well, you'll go to here and say, hey, about our license. But that's DxStory. Just copy the settings I had there, or the settings I mentioned. The last one that you can use is our MSI Afterburner. I've never used it. Very few people use it, but it is an option if you want to use it. I don't know how to use it. I'm sure there's tutorials, but you can use this to limit as well. So that's all the different ways that you can limit the frame rate. The next thing we need to talk about is a long intro, but there's a lot of things to cover, so I apologize. This is definitely gonna be the longest individual video of the entire series. Next thing to talk about is recording gameplay. Most people just use OBS Studio. Just download that and look up tutorials for how to use it. The important thing is that when you're using it, make sure that in the Fallout 4 section, for where you have Fallout 4 captured in properties, if you're doing game capture, make sure there should be an option for capturing third-party overlays. Make sure that is enabled, otherwise it won't capture your frame rate. Also, for your Android emulator, make sure capture cursor is on. This is very important. Your run will be denied if you aren't capturing your cursor. But there's tons of tutorials for how to use that, and this is not a tutorial for that, but that's what people use because people will ask. A couple additional small things in the setup. One very important thing is to go to Documents, go to My Games, Fallout 4, and then in your Fallout 4.ini, under General, add the line, oh, why isn't this showing up on OBS? Interesting. Why is this not showing up on OBS? Let me do that. There we go. Okay, so in Fallout 4. Oh, I understand what was happening. Okay. In the Fallout 4.ini, add the line be always active equals 1. This means that you can Alt-Tab out of your game and the game won't pause. By default, this is set to 0. And it won't be in here, so you have to add the line yourself, but setting it equals to 1 means that the game will continue to play out and it won't pause itself if you Alt-Tab out, and that is very important when it comes to using the Pip-Boy app. So do that. Additionally, if you're going to keep your monitor at 144 Hertz, what you have to do is, I believe it's outlined in here. Yeah, so you would have to disable VSync. By adding the line or changing the value of the line iPresent interval to 0 in both this file, the Fallout 4.ini, and then also in oh, sorry, you couldn't see the rule thing. here you go. So you changed iPresent interval to 0 in the Fallout 4.ini, the file we just had. Should be in there. You just have to find it. Just do Control F. Also in the Fallout 4 prefs file, find the iPresent interval, change it to 0, and that will disable VSync and allow you to play with 144 hertz monitor refresh rate without having to you still have to cap your game, or cap your frame rate, but it will fix the whole being capped to 48 frames per second. So there's that. I think that's about it for external setup stuff. I'm gonna leave it at 60 FPS. So say you're ready to do, you have all that set up. Next thing you need to do is launch the game. Very important thing is I highly recommend playing in windowed mode, windowed borderless. I also highly recommend setting all of your settings to the lowest possible. As you can see, these are all at the lowest. You want to make sure you hit 60 FPS consistently, and it's not a very optimized game. So make sure everything is very low. And definitely play in windowed, because that means that you can access the Pip-Boy app on the same screen, which is good, because you're going to be alt-tabbing. You're going to be playing over here. You're going to be alt-tabbing to access the Pip-Boy app a lot, especially during one segment of the run. So I would recommend playing in windowed borderless. In the actual game, so this is what my monitor looks like when I play, but here's how it appears in the actual recording. In the actual game, a couple settings that are important. Gameplay difficulty, change it to very easy. We always get people coming in asking, hey, why is this so hard? Why am I dying during this? It's like, did you set it to very easy? That is usually the solution. So do that. For saving, make sure Pip-Boy app is enabled in the menu here. Saving on rest and travel and stuff doesn't really matter too much. I just have it set to this and this. Not super important. But I would definitely leave at least save for travel on. Rest and wait aren't important because we don't really do them in the speedrun. Rest we do once, but it's not important. So I would just recommend having save on travel on. Controls don't matter. Just make sure that they don't overlap with your live split controls, so you don't try to do something in the game and then accidentally split or reset your timer. Display, again, not important. The only thing that's important is to turn dialogue camera on and subtitles, or sorry, dialogue camera off and subtitles on. Dialogue camera is the cinematic thing where it zooms on the people's faces, and that's slow. So turn that off, turn subtitles on. Audio doesn't really matter. That's about all for that. Before I get into the actual run, though, one other thing I want to talk about real quick is the no intro save. So in the My Games folder, in Fallout 4 folder, there should be a saves folder. And this is where, when you make saves in the game, this is where they go. So on speedrun.com, let me pull this back up. On speedrun.com, sorry, ignore the big window thing. In the resources thing, there should be a no intro save, any % no intro starting save. Download this, or you can make your own. I'll show you where to make the save, but just download this and copy it to the saves folder, and then it will be in your main menu, ready for you to use when you go to play the game. So with that all being said, I believe that's everything. The next thing will be actually starting the run. So setup is done, everything is all good to go. So yeah, let's get into actually starting the run. I'm going to end this video here, and the link to the whole tutorial series is the first link in the description, so click on there and follow it to the next video if you need to.